What's up, guys? Parker Talks is back. Today, I'm going to be doing my predictions for Week 4 of the college football season. And last week, I was 7-3, which brings my total up to 14-5 for my predictions on the college football season. There's only two games that are postponed this weekend. That is Rice versus Marshall, and then Troy versus South Alabama. The first game we have is Memphis as a 2.5-point favorite against SMU on the road. Now, Memphis is ranked 25th in the country, and I feel like they're a pretty good team. Definitely one of the better teams in the state of Tennessee. SMU, I believe they have the best quarterback in the AAC, Shane Buechele. They are 3-0, but they haven't really faced a worthy opponent yet. Memphis, on the other hand, has beaten Arkansas State, which has beaten Kansas State, which has beaten Oklahoma. Because of that, I'm going to go with Memphis in this game. I do think it's going to be a really good game, as there are a lot of cool, very good teams in the American Athletic. Next, we have number 2 Alabama at home as a 17.5-point favorite against number 13 Texas A&M. I believe this game is going to be really good. Yet we saw these teams play last week at very different opposite ends of the spectrum, as Alabama handily crushed Missouri, and on the other hand, you had Texas A&M that struggled to defeat Vanderbilt. Now, Kellen Mond had an okay game, but what I really saw from A&M was Isaiah Spiller at the running back position, getting over 100 yards in that game, played really well. While you look at Alabama, Mac Jones played really well, giving the ball to both Jalen Waddle, who had over 100 yards receiving, and Najee Harris almost had 100 rushing yards in that game as well. And they just have so many weapons with Alabama, with also Devontae Smith. I've already talked about all these people. I feel like Alabama is going to handily beat Texas A&M, although I think it's going to be fun, at least in the first half of this game. I feel like Alabama can get past that 17.5-point line. Next, number 16, Mississippi State, also a 17.5-point favorite at home against Arkansas. Now, Arkansas played a very good game against Georgia, as they stuck very close to Georgia in the first half, yet after a quarterback change by Georgia, they just couldn't hold up. Felipe Franks did play very well. On the other side, KJ Costello had 623 passing yards against LSU in a game that was a huge upset last week, as Mike Leach definitely brought that Pac-12 offense to the SEC with Mississippi State, as KJ Costello is a former Pac-12 quarterback. Mississippi State looked very good, and by what I was watching, they looked like a top 10 team. I believe Mississippi State can handily beat Arkansas this week, and I see them continuing to try to get into that top 10. Next is number 3, Florida, as an 18-point favorite at home against South Carolina, as Florida, again, will be facing up against their former coach, Will Muschamp, from South Carolina. Going to South Carolina, they played a very good game against Tennessee, as that game was very close throughout. Basically, last team that had the ball won that game. Shi Smith is the player on South Carolina that looked incredible at receiver position, while Colin Hill, a transferred quarterback from Colorado State, looked very good in that role for quarterback for South Carolina. Don't mind the construction noise outside. Anyway, continuing to Florida, Florida played an incredible game. Although it was very close to begin with against Ole Miss, Kyle Trask had 6 passing touchdowns, over 400 passing yards in that game, and Kyle Pitts, probably the best tight end in the SEC, had 4 receiving touchdowns. And this guy doesn't even look like a tight end, looks more like a receiver, but he can block, he can catch the ball as well. Florida looks very good, and they definitely deserve that number 3 spot in the country. Next is number 18, Oklahoma, on the road as a 7-point favorite against Iowa State. It's hard to see Oklahoma at the number 18 spot, but that's what happens after losing to Kansas State. It was a very close game throughout, but Oklahoma was not able to finish that game, and I wasn't expecting it to happen, but with Oklahoma and just how they have been in the past, they're just not the same team this year, I don't think. And I think, honestly, this game could be anybody's game. It's basically just whichever quarterback, Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma or Brock Purdy from Iowa State, whichever quarterback plays better, I think that team is going to win that game. However, Spencer Rattler has been playing better this year than Brock Purdy, so I'm going to go with Oklahoma in this game. Yet, I still think, as these Oklahoma-Iowa State games have been close in the past few years, this game is still going to be close, but I'm going to go with the Sooners. Let's go to the College Game Day game, as number 4 Georgia is a 6.5-point favorite against number 7 Auburn. Now let's first go to Auburn, as Auburn had a close game against Kentucky, but were able to prevail in the end, as Bo Nix played very well, and also Seth Williams with receiving over 100 yards. And I just feel like Auburn needs to get that rushing game going like they've been able to do in the past few years when Auburn has been really good. They need to get that going because Bo Nix was the leading rusher in that game. On the other side, Georgia did struggle a lot against Arkansas, especially in the first half. As I thought Jamie Newman was going to start for Georgia, but he did actually opt out this season, so they started DeJuan Mathis, who did not play well at all in the first half, but Georgia was able to come back and win after putting in Stetson Bennett in the second half. And Georgia looked like Georgia as we would think they would be with Stetson Bennett as quarterback. Now, JT Daniels, who's a transfer from USC, should be the starting quarterback soon for Georgia, but I don't think he's going to be ready to go yet, for he did have an ACL injury. He is coming back to that, and he is going to play soon, but I think Stetson Bennett is going to start in this game. Also, Zamir White played very well at running back, as Georgia has had a lot of running backs over the years that have been very good. I feel like this game is going to be very close. I feel like this is going to be the best game this week, as these teams are pretty evenly matched. I'm going to go with Georgia, though. They are at home, and I feel like they have basically gotten their quarterback situation set for right now. If they played Auburn last week, I don't think they would have won because of this quarterback situation. But for right now, I'm going with the Dogs. Next, number 9, Texas as an 11.5 point favorite at home against TCU. And I feel like Texas is not going to cover in this game as they struggled against Texas Tech. It went into overtime, a very high-scoring game as you usually see in the Big 12. Their defense just didn't look great. They just could not stop Texas Tech. And as I have Texas in my playoff for this season, I'm hoping they don't lower expectations as they have been able to do basically in the past few years. Right now, I really need to believe in Texas. I haven't yet, even though Sam Ehlinger is playing very well with already 10 passing touchdowns. Texas as a team needs to get together again and be that team that can be dominant in the Big 12. I still think they can win this game, but I don't think they're going to be able to cover. My next game is Kansas State as a 2.5 point favorite at home against Texas Tech. Now, these teams have been pretty similar this year, as you have Texas Tech barely beating Houston Baptist, then almost beating a ranked Texas team, and then you have Kansas State losing to Arkansas State, and then beating a number 3 at the time, Oklahoma. These teams are very similar, like I said, and Skylar Thompson is playing very well at the quarterback position in Kansas State. But then you also look at Texas Tech, and they have over 750 yards passing and 200 rushing yards as well, and that's from a team that you usually see passing the ball. But they have over 200 yards on the ground as well. These teams are very close. I'm going to go with Kansas State, though, as they have had a lot of momentum, as Texas Tech barely lost that game against Texas. They got to be a little devastated after that. I'm going to go with the Wildcats. Kentucky is a 6-point favorite at home against Ole Miss, and these teams are very similar in their Week 1 games as well, as Kentucky and both Ole Miss struggled to finish out their game, as they had their games pretty close in the beginning against Auburn and Ford respectively, but they were not able to finish. Now, Ole Miss basically has a 3-headed monster on their team, as Matt Corral at quarterback, Jerrion Ealy at running back, and also Elijah Moore at receiver. They all played very well against that Florida defense. Kentucky is at home, though, and I feel like Kentucky does have a better defense. They also have a more veteran quarterback with Terry Wilson, Terry Wilson is a great quarterback, both passing and, most importantly, rushing the ball. I believe Kentucky's going to win this game because they are at home and their defense is a little better than Ole Miss, and I feel like they can just have momentum from that game and going on to Week 3. Number 20 LSU is going on the road against Vanderbilt, as LSU is a 20.5 favorite in this game. I feel like LSU did not play as well as they could have against Mississippi State. That was definitely an upset or a shock to a lot of people, including me, as Mississippi State kind of like steamrolled through LSU once it got to the latter part of the game. I feel like Miles Brennan played fairly well in the quarterback position, but Terrence Marshall Jr. at receiver played very well. Vanderbilt kept that game very close against A&M, as their defense really showed up against Kellen Mond in that offense for A&M. I'm just really worried about Vandy's offense as they did struggle to get points. It was 7-5 at halftime in that game last week. I feel like LSU is good to win this game, but Vanderbilt, I feel like because their defense is going to cover in this points total, I haven't seen enough from LSU yet to cover that. So I'm going to go with Vanderbilt to cover, but LSU to win this game. So those are my 10 best games for week 3 of the college football season. Click the like button down below if you like these videos, and I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. See ya.